Join me tonight live on Twitch at 9 p.m. Eastern, where we will play NFL Trivia for cash prizes. Link to play below. And now, on with our feature presentation. When you're a coach at a press conference, most of the time, when asked about the opposing team in the build-up to the game, you're speaking very highly of them, no matter how good or how bad they might be. At the end of the day, these are still professional athletes, and on any given Sunday, they can beat you. So you see these coaches praising the other team and praising their strengths and talking about what they have to do in order to win the game. Whether it's talking about specific players or schemes they run, or speaking highly about the knowledge and the character of the opposing coach, you'll see the coach saying that. Very rarely will you see a coach completely trash the opposition before the game, talk about how much they stink, and predict an absolute blowout. And this is not one of those stories. However, sometimes you can go way too far in the opposite direction, where you praise the opposing team so much that you give yourself no chance of winning. There's a difference between saying, we need to play a great game of football and make no mistakes if we're going to have any chance at beating these guys, and saying, yeah, we're not winning this game. The other team is just too good. We've got no shot. The first is just generic coach speak. The second is a truly baffling statement, where you're conceding defeat for some reason against a team that you haven't even played yet. However, in 1966, that's exactly what happened with this man right here, Boston Patriots head coach Mike Holovak. Because prior to a 1966 game at the end of the season against the Buffalo Bills, in a completely serious, not sarcastic tone whatsoever, he conceded defeat and gave his guys no shot at winning the game. And when you realize what happened after that, it makes things just a little more bizarre. Because this is the story behind one of the strangest coaching moments in the over 6-year history of the Patriots franchise. Before I talk about the moment in question, as well as how the game itself played out, we need some context to understand just how well the Patriots were doing, as well as who their opponent was for this game. As we approach week 13 of the 14-game, 16-week AFL season, the good news for the Patriots was that they were playing some pretty good football, and were one of just 4 teams in the AFL to boast a winning record. Through their first 11 games, the Patriots found themselves right in the thick of things in the AFL East for a shot at playing in the championship, and eventually the Super Bowl, as they had a 6-3-2 record. Following a disappointing start to the season, where the Pats only won one of their first 4 games, they had been playing some awfully good football as of late, losing just once in the previous 7 weeks, and going 5-1-1 in that stretch. Led by the great play of guys like quarterback Babe Purley, who was having one of the best years of his career at 36 years old, running back Jim Nance, who was a force to be reckoned with and led the AFL in rushing yards and rushing touchdowns, and stout defenders, especially on the defensive line, like Jim Lee Hunt, Houston Antwine, and Larry Eisenhower, all of whom were named All-Stars. The Pats were not a team that you wanted to mess with. Only the division winner made it to the playoffs, as there was no such thing as a wild card back then. So even though the road was tough, the good news was that, on paper, the Patriots had the potential to do it. The bad news, however, was that they were not in first. Because sitting atop the AFL East with a record of 8-3-1, having played one more game than the Patriots, was this team right here, the Buffalo Bills. The Bills, much like the Patriots, got off to a poor start, as they started the campaign with an 0-2 record. However, after winning 8 of their ensuing 10 games, losing just once in that stretch, they found themselves riding high atop the division for a few reasons. You could not overlook their offense one bit, as through 12 games, the Bills had scored 317 points, averaging over 26 points per game. They had the second most points scored in the league by this point, and were one of just 2 teams, alongside the Kansas City Chiefs, to even cross the 280-point mark by this point, let alone the 300-point mark. The 1-2 punch at running back of Bobby Burnett and Ray Carlton, with each guy being named an all-star, gave the Bills a rushing offense that was third in the league in yards and first in touchdowns. Jack Kemp was playing well at quarterback, being named an AP second-team All-Pro and an All-Star, and was especially feeling hot as of late, as in the 4 games entering this one, he had 6 touchdowns and just 1 interception, playing extremely smart football. And the offensive line was absolutely dominant in pass protection, as over the last month, the Bills had allowed just 1 sack for a loss of 2 yards. That was it. 2 yards lost in sacks in the last month, or 0.5 yards per game. That is absurd. Over Buffalo's last 10 games, they had scored 290 points, coming out to 29 points per game. Keep that number in the back of your mind, because it's going to play an important part in our story in just a bit. However, while Buffalo's offense was a force to be reckoned with, perhaps the number one reason for their success was the play of this unit right here, their defense. As you're going to be able to tell from the next few minutes, Buffalo's defense was really, really good. By this point, Buffalo had allowed just 220 points, or 18.3 points per game. This was the best points per game allowed average in the league at the time, as even though 2 other teams in the Jets and Chargers allowed fewer points, they had played 1 less game than the Bills. Their run defense was nothing short of superb, as over their last 6 games, they allowed just 303 rushing yards, or barely over 50 yards per game. Keep in mind that on average, teams ran for over 116 yards per game that season, so to allow 50 yards per game and allow less than half of that is amazing. Buffalo's run defense was number 1 in literally every single statistic, whether it was rushing touchdowns allowed, rushing yards allowed, or yards per carry allowed. Trying to run on Buffalo was like trying to run through a brick wall. And they didn't just have a stout run defense, they had a great pass defense to go along with that. Over their last 5 games, the Bills allowed just 4 passing touchdowns while forcing 14 interceptions. In one of those games, they intercepted eventual Hall of Famer Joe Namath 5 times. In another one, they forced Miami quarterback George Wilson to go 3 for 13, completing 23% of his passes with no touchdowns, 3 interceptions, and a passer rating of 0.0, which is literally the lowest possible rating you can have. Thanks to ball hogs like Butch Bird, an all-star and first-team All-Pro who is maybe the best defensive back in the AFL, and Tom Janik, who ended the year 3rd in the league in interceptions, good luck throwing on Buffalo. You couldn't really run on them, and you couldn't really throw on them. No wonder they were so good. So Patriots head coach Mike Holovak had quite the task on his hands. How do you get past this defense? How on earth, in this must-win game, seeing as the Bills win the AFL East and give your Patriots no shot at playing January football if you lose this one, do you beat Buffalo? Well, that's the thing. You don't. Because beating Buffalo was going to be a tall order, and in the eyes of head coach Mike Holovak, it was not possible. Because in the days leading up to the game, when Holovak met with the media during his press conference, he looked at Buffalo's stout defense and looked at their incredible offense that was averaging just under 30 points per game, and essentially said, "Gentlemen, we're screwed." You know what's always a good sign? When this is the headline, and in big bold letters, it says that the coach is unsure that his team has what it takes to beat Buffalo. And this wasn't an exaggeration, or a hyperbole, or the media taking his words out of context, or the media not being able to recognize a joke. He genuinely believed this. He genuinely believed that his team had no shot. As Holovak said, "You tell me how we're going to get 30 points against this outfit. Seriously, we're not scoring 30 against this team. And with the way their offense is playing, we're not stopping them. And the only way to beat them is in a shootout. And against this defense, we can't do that. No chance. We're not winning this game." There's a couple of things that are absolutely absurd about what Holovak did. Number 1, The Patriots literally played the Bills earlier in the season, as on October 8th, they went on the road to Buffalo and won that game 20-10. However, in his eyes, his team peaked then and had been playing inconsistent life-or-death football, while Buffalo was the best team in the league. So that game was a fluke, and was in no way representative of what was going to transpire this time out. Having said that, obviously, there's a fine line between we beat them once before, but Buffalo's gotten a lot better since then, and we can't do what we did last time if we're going to beat them, because this is not the same team, and what Holovak said, which was, well, game 1 was a fluke, we've got no shot. Number 2, why on earth would you even say this? Even if you were not a good team, at the end of the day, you can't throw the towel in before the game even starts. Way to make your players have faith in you. Way to give the fans something to rally behind. Again, if you want to praise Buffalo for how good they are, praise Buffalo. If you want to say that it's going to be tough to win, and that you're going to need to play your best game of the season to win, then say that. No problems there. Complete non-story. But to say, you tell me how we can possibly beat this team because we can't stop their offense, and we're not going to be able to score on their defense, and to say it completely, 100% seriously, without any hint of sarcasm or joking, so you truly mean it, is just ridiculous, especially in a home game that can potentially mean the division title and playing in the playoffs. And the crazy part about all of this is that when all was said and done, against this Buffalo offense, and against this Buffalo defense, as in the units that Holovak gave his team no chance in the world at beating, the Patriots actually won the game. Seriously. In front of a sold-out crowd at Fenway Park, Boston won the game, taking it by a final score of 14-3, and completely holding Buffalo's red-hot offense in check. The Bills turned the ball over 4 times. Jack Kemp, who had to leave the game in the third quarter with an injury, got nothing going through the air, as one of the hottest quarterbacks in the league threw no touchdowns and 2 interceptions. Buffalo's running game, with that 1-2 combo of Carlton and Burnett, completely stopped, as the Bills had 40 rushing yards on 26 carries, averaging an abysmal 1.5 yards per carry. Buffalo played extremely sloppy football, putting the ball on the ground 3 times compared to none for the Patriots, and committing 8 penalties compared to just 3 for the Patriots. And remember how Buffalo's run defense was absurdly good? Jim Nantz was having none of that, as he ran for 109 yards on 24 carries and a touchdown, including a big 65-yard touchdown in the first quarter to give the Patriots a lead that they would never relinquish. So much for Holovak's comments. His team literally won the game. And if you're wondering if Holovak's comments before were some sort of reverse psychology tactic in the strangest of senses, they were not. He genuinely believed that his team had no chance at winning, saying after the game, "How do you get a team up again after this one? This is a funny team. It's unpredictable. You're wondering how you get your team, which has a winning record and is playing for a playoff spot and already had beat the Bills before, up to avoid a letdown after winning this game? Wow. You really gave your team no faith to win this one." That is saying a ton. The funny part is that Mike Holovak actually had a pretty successful tenure in Boston as the team's head coach from 1961 to 68. He ended his career there with a 52-46-9 record, having a positive winning percentage. He led the Patriots to the AFL Championship in 1963, and finished either first or second in his division more often than not. 5 winning records in 8 seasons is nothing to scoff at whatsoever. But this was one of his strangest moments, and not one of his finest moments at all. Because prior to this game against the Bills in 1966, even though it ain't over until the fat lady sings, for some reason, Holovak thought that the fat lady was singing well before this game even began. Get your official Jaguar Gear 9 merchandise by going to jj9shop.com And be sure to like and subscribe, as it really helps the channel out a lot. Join me every Wednesday night where we'll play NFL Trivia for cash prizes at 9 p.m. Eastern over on Twitch. To learn more about the history of college football, subscribe to Jaguar Gator 8. To learn more about the history of Major League Baseball, subscribe to Jaguar Gator 7. Also, special thanks to all of our Patreon supporters for helping out the channel. Your support is greatly appreciated. See how you can become a patron and request future video topics in the description below.